Hey guys, this is Runchuks from Bluff the Spot. Today I want to show you an extract from one of my Twitch streams where I analyzed a high-stakes PLO hand that I played recently. I believe this one's very instructive as it illustrates some of the core concepts of decision-making process in poker. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. This is a hand I found interesting. Once I played it, I immediately marked it for further review, and I thought, well, was definitely not very sure about my decisions throughout. And to be honest, I still haven't found the time to sit down and analyze it. Yeah. So let's see what happens. Under the gun opens. Pretty strong player under the gun. The recreational player in this lineup was on the button. He was playing a lot of hands, so which shouldn't change the opening range of the under the gun too much, but it is still something to consider. My 3-bet, I think, is pretty standard against this specific player. So nothing to talk about there. We get a call, and now is the first decision that I wasn't really sure when I saw it. You know, we flopped quite good. Type of board also where, you know, in general our range. Hey guys, new guys in the chat. Shadow Maniac as well likes the 3-bet. That's pretty cool. So yeah, you see the flop in general hits our range pretty good, but it also hits the range of under the gun pretty good. So we both should actually like this board a lot. And now the first decision came, and I wasn't really sure of, you know, because there's basically several options for us. You know, let's say 4 options at this stage. Option number 1 would be I could go for a pot size c-bet. I missed, what was that sound? I think we have a new follower. Thanks for that. So anyway, I'll try to concentrate, otherwise I'm just going to be all over the place. I'm going to explain my thought process and then check the chat, and hopefully we'll have a discussion about this hand, because to be honest, this is the only hand which I think is actually quite instructional, and a type of hand where I'm not even sure myself of what would be the best, most optimal line at this stage. So maybe we'll arrive at some conclusion after this discussion. So anyway, option number 1 would be I could make a pot size bet, which is perfectly fine, and you know, I would do it with a lot of my range, and like I said, a lot of my range connects here pretty solid. Option number 2 would be I would go for a small size bet, and option number 3 I would go for a check call. Option number 4 I would go for check raise. So let's think through all of the 4 options. I don't mind going for pot size bet. You know, we sometimes get it in pretty good, like against a hand that, you know, has an open ender plus, you know, a lower pair. We're in a very good shape. Very often though we get it in quite behind. You know, we still have a lot of really live outs. We have basically a wrap, which is not to the nuts, but a decent wrap. We have backdoor spades, and we have the top pair. So yeah, potting and just getting it in, I think it's fine. I'm not sure it maximizes our EV in this spot, and you know, our hand has a lot of playability, so by just basically pushing all the money in very easily, we make life easy for our opponent in a way, and we don't really gain much from that playability. So yeah, option number 2, which is betting small, I think I like the least. With this specific hand, doesn't achieve much because, you know, we're still playing a very tough guessing game on the turn if opponent calls. So we don't gain much information from his call. He can still call very light, and then SPR is pretty large, so that, say, if we decide to check on a blank turn, all of a sudden we're in a very tricky spot if he would pot on the turn. So I don't think I like the betting small. Now, between the check call and check raise, I think both are fine. Check call works good because we have a lot of backdoor equity and we have a lot of immediate equity regardless of what he has, and our visibility on a turn is pretty good. And I don't think that our opponent would go out of his way, you know, bluffing on hearts. In fact, he might slow down on hearts. Say he has 2 pair right now and a heart comes, well, we actually get a free card. That is if we were check calling the flop. So check raising is basically the same as potting here, except the range of the opponent is going to be, I think, stronger, because I don't believe that our opponent would be betting very light here. And I do think that he would check behind some hands which just have a pure draw. You know, and obviously he would still continue with these hands against our pot size bets. So, you know, it kind of comes to a point where I'd like to choose between potting myself or check calling. So, and obviously, you know, I probably had like 10 seconds for this decision because I had a bunch of table at the time, so had to come to a quick conclusion that I go for a check call, and I really wasn't sure whether I like it a lot or not. Now, after discussing this out loud, I actually think it was a good decision. So we face a pot size bet, we do call. Right? Now, the second point where I was again confused and pressed on time and wasn't sure what to do is this. So we have a blank turn, and now we have obviously 2 options, right? The option 1 is lead ourselves. Option 2 is check call, right? Because we're going to be basically all in. I don't think our opponent is going to make any bet buy, but just going all in. SPR is lower than 1 on the turn. So do we want to check call or do we want to lead ourselves? And you know, I had, like I said, was pressed on time, and I just quickly made a decision that, well, I will struggle to fold. Like, I can't fold this hand against his bet. But if I check, I allow him to check behind some draws, which potentially could improve. And I don't expect him to be able to find a complete airball here. So he's never, like, by us leading, we don't deny a chance to make extra money by making him you know, bluff. So yeah, I opted to lead, and he calls. Well, let's see the showdown. Why not? Let's see the showdown. So we have a 18K pot, and here you have it. Let's actually check the equities on the flop. So on the flop, yeah, we were quite behind, 36%. On the turn, what is it on the turn? Only 28%. So obviously we were up against a hand that we hate to be up against. You know, he dominates our pair. He has some of our outs. He has the hearts. Just a lot of bad stuff happened here. But so let's think about what happened and what were supposed to be my decisions. All right. So Shadow Maniac is saying, with the low SPR, isn't it better to check raise? Well, that's what I want to discuss, basically, you know, because, and again, I mean, maybe it was even better to pot ourselves, right? Because what I tried to, well, at least what I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, because I didn't do math on this spot, But I think when we check raise as opposed to pot ourselves, we're facing a stronger range. So our equity when we get it in is actually lower. And my reasoning for check calling was that, you know, he's gonna slow down on hearts, so we get to see free rivers some of the time. Because imagine if he has king 10, you know, potentially he could just check on the heart. I'm not saying he would always do it. I mean, most of the time he would just go with it, but it obviously depends on which heart comes. And obviously the hearts that he hates to see are also the hearts that help us, bringing us a straight most often. You know, on a spade we're very comfortable with a lot of equity. On a board pair, on a board pair we would be facing a pretty tough decision. And I don't know even, yeah, it's pretty tough on a board pair. And then on our straights, you know, obviously we have an option to lead. There's a lot of maneuverability. The reason that I preferred the check call here was, well, first of all, that way we use the full potential of our hand. You know, our hand has so much backdoor potential and a lot of playability and a lot of visibility. We pretty much know when we're good and when we're not. And also for our range, some parts of our range are not very happy to get it in here. You know, so do we always just wanna play a one street game here? So let's say when we're facing a bet, do we always just wanna stick it in, or do we ever want to be able to check call? And if we ever want to be able to check call, then check calling with this hand is pretty good. Right? So again, this is something, that's why I posted this hand. I hope that somebody's gonna run the math and you know, or we start some discussions, because obviously, you know, now that we're talking about these things, there's a lot of open questions and a lot of things to consider. When I was playing this, obviously there's not enough time to go through all of these things. And what I want to illustrate here is that, you know, very often you're going to be facing decisions that you're not 100% sure about. Definitely mark those hands. Immediately mark those hands, because you can learn from this, and, you know, next time you're going to be facing a similar decision, you're going to know what to do much better. And this is a decision that theoretically occurs often enough for it to be worth analyzing, right? So let me check the chat again. What are you guys saying about all this? So isn't it better to bet we have a strong enough hand to get it in on the flop? If we check, we face him check behind. Yeah, the hearts would check back a lot of the time. I agree. Yeah, short stacking, this would be a bet. I completely agree. Yeah, if we're short stacking, there's just a bet all day. You know, we would be, in fact, short stacking, we would be betting a huge amount of our range. You know, and even just bare aces are still just sticking it in here. SPR is higher, so it is slightly different, right? And there's this open question, which I'm still, you know, still unsure about. Do we wanna ever check call here? Because if we don't want to check call, then this play makes no sense, right? Because if that's basically the only hand we want to check call with, right? So it would be important to analyze which hands do we want to check call. And I don't have the answers. Like I said, I didn't analyze the hand, I didn't do the math. I will at some point. Rest assured, I will, because I want to learn from this hand. I don't think I made big mistakes. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that, you know, I made some big judgment errors, you know, that cost me a lot of EV. But I'm not sure I maximized my EV, and I'm not sure I played my hand according to how my range wants to play. Right? So let's go through it again without seeing the cards, because then we're going to switch to another hand, and we don't want to see those cards, right? So anyway, now that with all that information, with all this discussion, let's just see it anew, sort of, and yeah, so 3-bet SPR is over 3. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those, you know. It's definitely worth doing the math, and perhaps, you know, work with solver would actually give me some perspective on what's best. But yeah, from the two options on the flop, I think I prefer either potting it myself or going for check call. I think betting small I don't like at all, and check raising, then I would rather go for potting it myself than check raising. Yeah, I think that's I'm sticking to this assessment. I think it's fine. Now leading on the turn, I guess I already explained my reasoning. I like, after we check called, I like the leading here because again, you know, we want to charge the draws, and we're not folding against his bets anyway, so basically the result is going to be the same, except you know, by checking we allow him to check some weaker hands and realize his equity a bit better. So alright, we have more comments. I don't really like check raise versus good opponent, which will have good betting ranges on the flop, meaning he has easy folds and easy calls. Yeah, I agree with that. But the thing is, I mean, it's unlikely that he found a hand that could have potted it here that is a complete air and is folding, right? I don't think we have much fold equity here, you know, because if we are check raising with an idea, this is actually a point I didn't make, and I have to, yeah, because I don't think we have fold equity. Let's go back to the flop so we are all on the same page. I don't think if I check raise, I get him to fold anything that we want him to fold, and I don't even think he has complete airballs here. Like, it's pretty hard for him to have absolute rubbish that he found a bet with, right? Because his range is just going to connect with this board so much. Yeah. So potting has the advantage to be sure to realize our equity, and check call protects a bit our range on some runouts that shouldn't hit our range. Yeah, I agree with that reasoning. Check calling with a flush draw and leading turn with it. My thoughts. I mean, it's not easy to analyze that abstractly, because we need to dig deeper into which flush draws, because I think a lot of flush draws that would connect with this board, I just want outright pot. You know, especially because we get it in dominating his range a lot. And we already discussed that with this hand, we actually don't dominate very often. When the money goes in, we're usually behind. Let's face it, when the money goes in, yeah, we're never way ahead. We might be flipping quite often, and more often than not, we're actually just behind. Anyway, yeah, I think that was a cool hand. I'm happy with the analysis we made, and happy with the discussion. And I'm glad that we have different opinions from you guys, and then hopefully we are coming to some sort of common truth. It's cool, that's why I'm doing this. If you liked the video, remember to hit like and subscribe, and let me know what you think about the hand and my analysis of it in the comments below. And next, I'm going to be publishing the first recording of my weekly Twitch show, so look out for that. It's a great one. It's entertaining and it touches upon many topics related to high-stakes online poker. Alright, so thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.